Very pleased now to be joined by the one, the only, the legendary, the internationally famous, the GOAT. That is the greatest of all time, the NFL's all-time leading rusher. Joining us on behalf of PepsiCo, it is the one and only Emmitt Smith. Emmitt, thank you so much for taking the time to join us at Blogging the Boys.
Appreciate it. Appreciate how you doing.
I'm doing really well. You asked me right before we started recording about my background. The podcast audience can't see it, but obviously the YouTube audience can that we have. I'm a big Cowboys fan, obviously. It's my professional living, and you're a big part of that. Do you ever, I just feel like if I were you, you have created so many fans. Like, does that ever live on your mind that what you did and throughout your career means so much to so many other people?
You know what it does, it reminds me of the ability to not only influence people in the most positive way, but the responsibility that comes along with being a high performing athlete or a high level athlete, if you will, that's recognizable. I mean, it comes with a lot of responsibility because of that. And many people are looking to you or watching you and watching everything that you do. And you do have the ability to influence people in the most positive way, but also in a negative way. So it's a double-edged sword. But I've embraced it. I enjoy it, but I must be honest, there are times when you just want to be left alone, like anybody else. I am no different. And so, but for the most part, my life is not something that I should be complaining about.
Well, everybody has, annoyances and things like that in life. And like you said, you're no different. But you haven't lived the life of a football fan the way we have. That I've got that on you, Evan. You know what I mean? Like, you did the whole like leading the NFL and rushing, whatever. But I know what it's like to be a football fan.
Right.
And a very popular question that kind of gets thrown out a lot is, as if we use the Cowboys as an example, is if you could pluck, any Cowboy from any point in their career and put them on the 2023 team, who would you do? Right. And some people say, I'd get Charles Haley in his prime. I'd get Deion Sanders in his prime, whatever the case may be. Some people would say Emmitt Smith in his prime. And I have a question about that in a moment, but who would your answer be? If you could add any Cowboy great to this year's team, yourself included, who would it be and why?
This year's team, I think this year's team, they need a Michael Irvin more so than they need Emmitt Smith. Because I honestly believe that the wide receiver core, CeeDee Lamb can use somebody else that would draw double coverage. And I think that's an important thing to have when you're on the Cowboys team and you have Dak Prescott back there throwing the ball, to be able to spread the ball around to people that can beat man to man and get open and be competitive as the ball is in the air like Michael was. I think that's something that CeeDee Lamb can benefit from, and the Cowboys offense can benefit from that too as well.
They'd have to have a fight over who would get to wear number 88.
Now, I hate to say this. I mean, by not plugging me in the backfield and having that run threat, that can create a problem. But, I think they got, and I hate to say it because now it's falling into that vein of the value of the running back because it makes it seem like you can plug anybody back there. But, I mean, if Zeke was back there, Malik Davis, Tony Pollard, any of those guys are still in the backfield with Irvin on the field, I think it makes a big difference.
That's really well said. Well, I asked this because you are joining us today on behalf of PepsiCo, and you kind of lived out the answer yourself in the commercial. It's super funny. It's super great. This is such a kind of cool idea. Tell us a little bit about the commercial that you and PepsiCo have coming out.
Well, teaming up with PepsiCo and a whole slew of other retired athletes, the whole campaign is all about unretirement. Most of us think about, once we retire, we think there's a spot or a time in our afterlife of football or after sports where something may cross our mind. Man, I can go back there and do it again. And there's only certain games that cross your minds. Games like big playoff games or big rivalry games or something of that nature. But like you said, I've become a fan now because my son is playing ball at Stanford. So I'm watching him and watching college football from a totally different level. And the best part about it, the best part about watching football right now is the joy of watching the game, not only my fans, friends, and family members, but enjoying the game tailgating, whether it's with my favorite chips or my favorite drink. And when it comes down to those things, it's obviously Cheetos for me and it's Mountain Dew for me as well. And it's all the other ancillary things that's around the table when you have a platter of things that you can choose from. And so that's what makes football so enjoyable. I didn't get a chance to experience it as much as I do now because I was playing the game instead of participating in fan watching the game. So right now it's a joy. It's a joy for me to do it, and I enjoy doing it week in and week out now. I'm so glad that football is back.
The commercial is really great. You mentioned the other retired players. Dan Marino's there. Jerry Rice is there. It's super, it's just a really funny way at poking at the unretirement factor. Obviously, a great campaign that PepsiCo has come up with. I always, full disclosure, I was at your Hall of Fame enshrinement in 2010. And okay. It's difficult to say one Hall of Fame class is better than the other because they're all Hall of Famers, but it's you and Jerry Rice. It's the two GOATs. I don't know that another, there's a lot of other great members of that class as well. Certainly John Randall was amazing. I mean, that whole class was wonderful, but you and Jerry kind of led the way. Nobody else has that. Like, do you ever, when you guys go back to Ken, you're like, that's cool, that y'all are in the Hall of Fame, Joe Thomas, but we have the two GOATs in 2010.
I'm extremely proud of just that simple fact, but I'm also humbled by the fact that Jerry and I both, we both are from the South. Jerry's from obviously Mississippi, and I'm from Florida. My family members, my father grew up in Mississippi as well. And so to be able to play the game as long as I was able to play it, and to watch Jerry Rice play the game as long as he was able to play, is a tribute to the way he trained. But here's the crazy part about it. To retire at the same time, and to be able to go into the Hall of Fame at the same time. When he retired, he was already the all-time leading receiver. But when I retired, I was all-time leading rusher. For him to be in the game as long as he was, and for me to play the game as long as I was able to, and to be able to walk away at the same time, and to go in the Hall of Fame together, those are you couldn't script something better than that for me and as a player. And I don't think the Hall of Fame could ever see anything like that ever happening again. That's like Dan Marino or Patrick Mahomes going in at the same time. It's just not going to happen. And so for Jerry Rice and I to be in the Hall of Fame at the same time, those are very unique moments and unique opportunities. And it's a tribute to the grace and mercy that we both have had throughout the sport.
You're right. To obviously retire simultaneously, both first ballot. I mean, those things just, kind of amazing fate the way, or amazing that fate worked out that way.
Yes.
And I have to ask you about the 2023 team. It's obviously been a long time since the Cowboys have won the Super Bowl. And I don't want to say it feels different. I don't want to do the classic Cowboys fan. Like, I don't know, Emmitt, this year feels different. They're a very talented team. I think that is universally agreed upon. Yeah. It's extraordinarily difficult to win the Super Bowl. You probably will not. If I had to pick one team or the field, I would take the field all day long. There's obviously an enormous amount of pressure on this team, enormous amount of pressure on the quarterback, on the head coach. I mean, again, what it's like. Heavy is the head that wears the crown of the Dallas Cowboys. But what are your anticipations or your thoughts on how this team can fare now that the regular season is going to be starting next week with the PepsiCo commercial obviously unveiled during that Sunday Night Football kickoff game?
Well, my thoughts are what they are just about every year. I think this is a time where a team going training camp is when chemistry is developed. It's actually developed way back during the off season, back in February and March when the team is actually training. I'm so accustomed to being in the weight room and in the locker room with my teammates from February all the way up to training camp. That's when chemistry is truly built. Now, it's about, can these pieces of the puzzle come together as a unit and fight together as a unit? And the one thing I definitely will say that the Cowboys need and will always need is a solid running game. And if your team is not built from inside out, meaning D-line, O-line, physicality for 4 quarters, built for a 17-game schedule, if not a 25 or a 21-game schedule, if it's not built for that, everything that we're seeing right now is just hoopla. It's just a bunch of noise because that's really what's going to be required to get to the Super Bowl. And that means not just the team, the football players themselves, that's also spills over to the coaching staff. The consistency of the play calling, the yin and the yang of the offense and the defense, as well as special teams. The ability to make calculated great decisions, not guess decisions or emotional decisions when they come down to fourth down. Should I go for it or should I not? Should I punt? How is the team playing? Are we emotionally connected? Or is the defense playing better? Should I lean on the defense until the offense get it in gear? And if the offense is rolling, should we just try to slow the ball down and eat up the clock and allow us to become more balanced? To me, that's who the Cowboys organizations have been in the past, and that's who we're going to always be, because that's just, it's in our nature. Now, to try to get away from that because of various things that's happened throughout the National Football League, or because you want to look at the analytics and all that kind of stuff and make decisions off of that BS, go for it. Go for it. As you go for it, just know this. You don't have the quarterback of a Patrick Mahomes. You don't have a quarterback of Aaron Rodgers. You don't have a guy that can throw the ball 45, 50 times a game and spin it and be as accurate as he needs to be. He's a guy that is very accurate within the scheme of everything, as long as he has the balance that's required. There come a point in time in games when you must throw the ball is when you're only behind. But if our defense is as good as it is, as we think it is, we shouldn't be behind in a whole lot of game unless our offense is just flat out staking up the field.
That's really well said. And I think, especially based off of all that passion, you're fit to be a fan now, Emmitt. You've met the criteria. So you've made the transition from GOAT to fan. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. The commercial at PepsiCo is great. Everybody obviously be on the lookout for it this season. Have a great rest of the day. And yeah, class of 2010 forever.
Thank you.